Hey, what's up, everybody? Let's talk about the XRP price chart and what I believe is going on in this chart. I think we have, obviously, this is a corrective move, and I think we still have more correcting to do before ultimately going higher. But before I do that, I just want to bring up Bitcoin just for a moment and talk about, let's go to the sequential here. Let's go to the 12-hour chart. Just a moment. There we go. Okay, so we had a 12-hour 9, and now we're sort of consolidating. You can see that 9 right there, that printed that red dot right there. Okay, and then it had this dot, this dot, this dot, and since that 9 was printed, all of these candles couldn't break above the red dot, right? So that red dot, which is exactly at 67,951, that's the level we need to break above, obviously. So how are we looking at this wave? Well, in my opinion, we have a wave 1, a wave 2, a wave 3, a wave 4, and let's get a wave 5. That's what I'm looking for in regards to the Bitcoin price chart. And I would take this line and I would actually put it right there. So right about 70,000, 70,500, around there, is the next stop I believe that we're heading towards. Now, is it possible that this is already completed, a 5-wave leg to the upside? Yes, it is. If I go to the 2-hour chart, you could make the case that this wave is finished. For example, you have a 1, 2, you have a 3, 4, and 5. And this is an A, this is a B, a C. You have a 3-wave move, 1, 2, 3. You might get another 1, 2, 3, and then you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C. So 1, 2, and then we start heading up. We start flagging out in here. That's definitely a possibility. Now, is it possible that we could still be in this wave and it be something like an A, B, C, some kind of flat A, B, C, and then we come up, we tag the 5th? That's kind of what I'm thinking, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we get 5, somewhere up to that 70K area, right? Okay, so if that's the case, then how can we sort of translate that to the altcoins? Well, first, let me go to the daily. If that happened, by the way, run a 7, okay, 7 of 9. So that means by Saturday, we should get a 9, which means next week, in my opinion, could be very bearish. Not like turn all the way down bearish, but like correctiveness bearish. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking. I think next week is going to be bearish. I think too many people got bullish, and I think we need to consolidate a little bit. So you can say, what do you mean? We've been consolidating for the last 8 months, right? I mean, how much more do we need? Well, the thing is, when we go to total, and I'll do that just in a moment. When we go to total, you'll see what I'm explaining in just a second. So, but first, when we look at the Bitcoin price chart, right, and we draw this zone right here, right, and then we have another one right about here, and I'll actually change that to say blue. Okay, so those are our two zones. And I think, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's get into that gray zone, right? And then from there, what do we want to see? We want to see a flagging out process. That could take 30 days, 60 days, right? Something along the lines of a corrective nature. Nothing like this, right? Nothing like that. That's a big no-no. We cannot have that anymore. We're past that, right? So we definitely don't want anything like that. Now look at this move. That's a three-way move there. So if we had something like that, that's what we're looking for. If we get that signal, then I'm going to be 99.9999% sure that we're breaking out. So we're very close, right? We're getting much, much closer. Now, as part of the inflection point is concerned, right? Remember this zone back over here, right? When we broke below it, and then when we came back above it, we held it as support. So that was a very important thing, holding that as support. So that kind of told me, okay, now we're probably heading back to the top of the range, and the WXY count is less likely to occur. So if Bitcoin pumps a little bit more up to 70K, even 71K, and starts flagging out, how does that translate to altcoins? Well, let's take a look. So here's the total 3, and total 3, in my opinion, is finished. I think the correction, this low here was the low. And the reason I say that is because we've been talking about W, X, Y, X, Z, right? That is a triple combo Elliott wave correction, and it's in the shape of a bull flag, right? And you can see that pretty clearly here. And you can see that we've broken above the flag. We're back tested a little bit. Now we're sort of hanging above it again. Now, could we come back down and test it again? Absolutely. So again, if Bitcoin starts flagging out, it could actually be flagging out now or back up to 70, 71K and then start. So how does that look for alts? Well, we have, and this is translating to all the altcoins, right? And I'm going to show you another chart too. Theta is actually a very good representation of most of the altcoins, the style of the chart, right? So we have W, X, Y, X, Z. There's your end right there. And then you come up in an impulse. You have a 1, right? And then you have this expanded flat here for a 2. And then you come up again, 1, and then 2, right? The question is 2 finished? Now, 2 can be complex, right? For example, if this is a 5-wave leg and we have A and we come up B, maybe we come down to C, right? And then we actually extend this out a little bit more, right about there. And, we can come down A, B, C, right? And tag that there and then continue higher. But wait a minute. If Bitcoin's going to pop the high, then why would we go down now? That's a great point, right? So in my response to that would be, well, maybe we come up and we take the high. So that would be the equivalent of total 3 getting to about $660 billion, right? So right around there would be the idea. So if we do pop the high, then how does that correction look? Well, it would be a flat, right? Because we would come up 1, 2, 3. Maybe we get up a little bit higher over the weekend or something, and maybe even into Monday or even Tuesday, right? Probably likely into next week. And then the later part of the week we correct. So it'd be A, we come up, pop the high for B, and then we have a long sort of drawn out C wave, right? Kind of like a long, kind of something like that. And then we start to cut back to the upside, right? And then we start flagging out in here, and that's when we break out, right? So that's kind of what I'm thinking is going on here. And it's likely that this trend will break, right? Because everybody's watching that trend line. And trend lines are meant to be broken. Now you have an apex coming in here. And I can actually put that down a little bit lower, right? So if we break that, everyone's going to assume, okay, we broke it. But then we come back in and then we break it to the downside. Everyone's going to say, oh, it was a fake out. Now we're breaking to the down. And then we go back up. So that's what a flat does, right? A flat is a double fake out. And that's basically the classic way of looking at it. So when I look at this, I'm looking at this as actually, let me put a zone right in here. Okay. When I look at this, I'm actually looking at it like, okay, we were cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance. And we might have to do it one more time, cupping into the resistance. Eventually you're hitting it, 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 and eventually you break it. And that's the idea. Now, could we break it now and break out with a vengeance and then flag out? Totally. But is it likely? I mean, it possibly, right? But in my thinking is, we're probably going to have to do a little bit more correcting down in here. Because when you look at it, right, let's take everything off the screen. Or actually, let's go to Theta. And you can see Theta is dumping right now. Right? And that's, we talked about that as well. So when we look at Theta, right, you can see, and we were talking about this just the other day, the trend breaks to the downside. Right? It comes down, it tests as a resistance, and then sort of sentiment sort of degrades. And that's kind of what you want. You want the sentiment to degrade a little bit. But essentially, the reason why I think we're going to do that is because when you look at our base here, and you can actually say that this was the base starting from this low right here, which is essentially Wyckoff, right? So base building, and we've talked about base building all the way back in July. You can go back and check. I mean, that's what we've been talking about. And following a base comes what? A retracement. You have a rise, you have a crash, and then what comes next? The retrace, right? So that's the next move. We should expect a big retrace, not just for Theta. I'm talking most of them. Most of the altcoins out there should have a retracement. If not, just break the high. And then from there, maybe a little bit of reaccumulation and then a continuation to the upside. But before we even get to this retracement, we still have to work out all the stuff down here, right? So what's going on down here, if we translate Total 3 and Bitcoin into Theta, right? If we translate it into Theta, then that tells me we're most likely doing something like this. For example, it can be number one, we have this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then we come up A, B, and then we come up C, right? And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down. So basically A, B, C, right? Maybe coming back down, testing these lows here, right? And that's what you want. You want it to range, oscillating to the upside, to the downside, to the upside, to the downside, to the upside, to the downside. That is what you want. That is oscillation within a range, right? And basically you're consolidating the price into a tight range where then, you can't do anything else, so you break out. Right? And that's the idea. And Wyckoff is all over this chart. right? So we can have that Wyckoff look. Now, when we break out, might play around a little bit, then continue higher. So this might take between now and maybe mid-November or even December, right? So let's put a line December 1st, okay? Remember, the election's coming up. Man, I can't believe it. Like, what, 19 days left? I just watched the Kamala Harris interview, and it was just so sad. Like, you almost kind of feel bad. Like, she has no clue what she wants to do. Like, she didn't answer any of the questions. She kept just, I don't know, it's just ridiculous. I just can't understand how people can vote. I mean, obviously you're not voting for her. You're voting against Trump if you vote for her. I mean, that's just the only way. But anyways, that was hilarious. So we'll see how this election plays out. My bet is Trump wins, but then also there's probably going to be a lot of chaos. In fact, probably not, trying to say, oh, he cheated, or oh, this happened, or they're going to pull something out of the hat, try to make it seem like he didn't win, or, so we'll find out. And that could cause some panic in the market. So just be aware of that. So if we do get this ABC, probably somewhere around early December, maybe late November, and then continue higher. And that would kind of complete it. Now, the other idea is that this was a flat A, B, C, and that's our B wave. So we have A, we have a shallow B, right? And then we kind of come down like a C, just like that, and then continue higher, right? So either way, I think that's kind of what's in store for us on the horizon. So we'll see how all that plays out. Now, going to XRP, by the way, when you look at Theta versus Bitcoin, right? That's kind of what we're thinking here, right? You can see we have 3 up, maybe you get 3 down, right? And then once it finishes, it could take the low and then swoop back to the upside, kind of like that Wyckoff, where this is your spring phase, right? And there's your base, and then you come up and then continue back to the upside. And so, yeah, we could break the low ever so slightly. And then that would also be actually kind of good, because it would give us a more clear 5 waves. For example, if you say 1 and 2, right? And then you say 3 and 4, and then we get 5, right? And then what you want is you want some bullish divergence, which I don't know if we're going to get it or not, because we're already pretty close to the low. So I'd probably have to bump it up. I'm curious to what the weekly looks like. So the weekly chart, yeah, we could get some bullish divergence on the weekly. This is Theta versus Bitcoin, right? So that's a pretty nasty candle. So if we come down here and we get that divergence, right, that might be a good indicator. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then go up for a retracement. So we'll see how that plays, but that's kind of what my thought process is at the moment. By the way, breaking news, we have the S&P 500, another record high, right, for this weekly candle. I mean, this weekly candle is the highest the stock market has ever been in its entire life. I mean, and it's kind of like, everybody's expecting a crash and all that. But here's the thing. When you look at the environment of the stock market, the crash is not going to necessarily happen there. It probably will happen in the bond market, right? Because at the end of the day, the Fed is in control. The central banks of the planet are in control. And they have so many dollar bills, they don't know what to do with it. So what do they do with it? They jam it into the stock market, right? So they prop up the market right before the election, right? And that's kind of how things work. And there's no escape for the Fed, and basically, we should continue to go higher. I mean, if we're going to see real hyperinflation, I mean, we probably haven't seen anything yet. This hasn't really gone parabolic yet, right? So parabolic, we're kind of slowly going up, we pull back. This kind of looks like to me a 1, 2, right? I mean, this looks like we're in the middle of a third wave. Then we get 4, and then we get 5. And 5 should be pretty parabolic. So we could see, maybe a 7,000, 8,000 S&P, which is crazy, right? Because just back a few years ago, we were less than 5,000, right? So, and this would be great for crypto, and that's what we want to see. So yeah, that's a good thing. But eventually, we're gonna get a big dump, and if we go back to the 2008 financial crisis, you can kind of see how that drop occurred, right? You had this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave sharp impulse to the downside, right? So, I mean, you can see we've ever since that 2009 bottom, we've been going up, 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 right? And 1, 2, you could say, and I would say all of this is 3, this is 4, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, I think it's looking pretty nice for the S&P. Now, can a black swan event change that? Absolutely, right? I mean, we've been going up since October of 2022, so exactly 2 years. That actually marked the bottom, interestingly enough. Look at that, October, basically the middle of the month in October was the bottom, and here we are in the middle of the month October now. So interesting. So as far as Solana goes, I'm gonna get to XRP in just a second, but as far as Solana goes, I think again this is flagging out, and just like we were flagging out here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's just a matter of waiting, right? And if we translate that into Solana, you have a 1, A, B, C, go, right? So you're cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance. That's what you want. You want to cup into the resistance and continue to do that, and that way you weaken it, right? So I think SHIB is actually more interesting than Solana because to me, it offers a little bit more opportunity. I mean, you can see we had a nice 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm thinking here, A, B, C. Maybe we come down and back test this area a little bit. We flag to the downside before heading up, right? Getting back to this level, then we reevaluate. But all in all, it's looking pretty interesting. If you want to know the truth, simply because we've had such a long accumulation pattern, and not just SHIB, right? A lot of other coins as well. You break out, you come down, you back test, you build a bottom, you get a retracement, and then from there, this is the ultimate decision. Do we continue higher, or do we have an ABC and then continue higher, right? So, but we'll take things one step at a time. Now, as far as the Russell goes, I mean, there's a lot of talk about. I mean, think about the Russell as kind of your altcoin of the stock market, right? And You can see the S&P breaking, the Dow, right, the Nasdaq, but the Russell hasn't, right? It's sort of a, the 2000 index, basically the smaller companies, right? So we're right at the retracement level, and what I like about it is essentially, we're back to the swing high here, right? Cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, right? Low, higher, low, higher, low. So if we can break out and then kind of back test a little bit, we can be on our way. And when we put Bitcoin on there, right? I know BCB loves to talk about the Russell, so I'm going to bring it up. I don't think it's as significant, but I do agree that we do have to break out. So yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about that. I mean, it looks interesting. The only thing that I would say differently is the risk of us having to go into reaccumulation, right? So we have a rise, a crash, a retrace, right? What if we have to come back down here and sort of go into reaccumulation before breaking out, right? So that could still happen, and that could take another, who knows how long, 3, 6 months, whatever. And then you get more of that cup and handle look as opposed to just breaking out. So that's kind of where me and him differ on that. But if I had to make an estimate, as far as the environment with the Fed and what's going on, I think we're just going to break out. So it might take a little time, but I think it's coming. Especially because, I would be saying this more back then, maybe a couple months ago, but since the Dow and the S&P has broken, it's only a matter of time before the Russell does as well. So XRP, $31 billion. This is the market cap of XRP. And essentially, my whole idea with XRP is we're going to go into expansion, right? Ripple is just on another level when it comes to blockchain companies. I mean, they are doing so many different things. They just had a big event. I think it was, I don't remember where exactly it was, but they did a major event. They do it every year. It's called Ripple Swell, right? They essentially are talking about their new stable coin, right? I mean, you can earn, I think like 4 or 5% on the stable coin, right? So, like, for example, if I had $2,000 in a savings account at the bank, you're only getting pennies, right? But if you put $2,000 in a stable coin, you can earn maybe 5-6% on that, right? So it's kind of like a no-brainer. And that's kind of why banks don't like stable coins. That's why banks don't like crypto. That's why they're basically shaking in their boots like, what do we do about this? And that's the whole reason I bring up Trump, right? Is because if Kamala gets in, the banks are going to simply get their way, and we're going to be forced to go through the CBDC. They're going to ban crypto. I mean, they say they don't want to, but they really do, right? Because they're all owned by the same people, right? Which is the central banking system. That, whoever, I mean, they try to stay out of the news. It's always Republicans, Democrats, right? They focus on that. But that's not where the real problem is. The real problem is who's funding it, right? Where's all this? Whoever controls the world's money really is who controls the world, which is the Fed, right? So anyway, just kind of sickening just to even think about it. But as far as XRP goes, again, we're cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, right? Cupping into the resistance. Now, how many times is it going to take? Eventually, we're going to break it. And if we cup into the resistance again, I think we're on our way, right? So, kind of like over here, you're cupping, you break. So if you take that fractal and you look over here, right, you kind of have that same thing right here, right? That kind of that bottoming process that we're used to seeing with a lot of these altcoins. And if I take this, and match it up to the current price action, you can kind of see a little bit of a resemblance here. It's not perfect, but I kind of made it a little bit bigger so we can see. But essentially, you have this move here, hit the low, right? And then you kind of trailing to the upside, right? You're trailing to the upside, and then hit the low, and then you come up, you pop the high, you take the high right there. You come up, you pop the high, you take the high right there. And then what do? You're just dragging all the way down. You drag all the way down, right? So you basically have an A, B, C. It's a flat, right? And then you come back down to these lows here, and then you come up, and then you flag out. So essentially, if we translated that, we come up, and then we flag out, and then what happens? Explosion, right? So that's kind of sort of what I'm expecting here. And I'll take a screenshot, and we can come back in maybe a week and see how it's looking. So if I kind of plug it on here, it kind of gives us that impression. And basically what we're trying to do here is build a base, build a range, right? And basically accumulate. Now, when you drag this all the way along, you can see we're at the bottom here of our range, which is a much larger range down in here, right? So here's the top of the range. And what am I expecting? I'm expecting at least a retracement back to that $33 billion area, right? So despite all the pain and carnage when it comes to XRP, it still has managed, despite all of the stuff it's been through, to hold a top 10 title. And that in itself shows major strength. I mean, to be a $30 billion asset, I mean, that takes a lot, right? I mean, that's a lot of money. So to stay in that status, despite a massive lawsuit, despite all the things that have been going on, I mean, to stay in that 30 billion top 10 market cap is pretty impressive. And here's the most impressive part. XRP hasn't broken its all-time high in what, 7, almost 8 years, right? While the rest of the market was going on a massive bull run, XRP just went into a retracement. The rest of the market went into a big bear market, right? XRP went down into reaccumulation. Rest of the market went sideways, XRP went sideways. Bitcoin back at the all-time high, right? Some of the altcoins are starting to break it, right? Or at least still in the range here. So once Bitcoin goes into that expansion, that's when we should expect XRP to break out. And you can see this trend line here, right? Once we break that, we're not that far away, right? We're not that far away. Once we break that, we're getting to the apex here. It could be a very big, surprising move for most people, because most people become complacent, because when price goes sideways for year after year after year after year after year, they get complacent. They feel like, it's going to be 50, 60 cents forever. And then one day they wake up, it's $2, $3, right? So, and then very shortly after that, maybe 5, 6, 7, up to $10, you know what I mean? And even possibly higher than that. We just have to wait and see, and we have to look at the wave structure on how it moves up. But essentially, that fractal is kind of what I'm looking at here. And one more time, let me go to the 1 hour chart. You can see it right there. Actually, I'll take a screenshot of that and we can revisit it. So let me remove this. So yeah, so this is our fractal here. Let's keep an eye on it and see how it plays out. But what I also want to talk about is we have 5 waves, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? It's a diagonal. You can say it's a diagonal, right? You got 3, you got 3, you got 3, and I don't know. I think you got 3 here too. So you're getting into that tight range. So what happens after that is you get an ABC. You come back down to the lows, and then you go higher. Right? Now, is it possible we can hit the high again? Yeah. I mean, it is. Right? But eventually, the wave started from here. And it's correcting and correcting and correcting. Eventually, it's got to come down and flush all that out. Now, is it a chance that that doesn't happen? Well, kind of, because what would it be is you have a 1 and then a 2. And then you have a 1, 2, and then maybe another 1, 2. I mean, yeah, it's possible we can get up here. But even if we did, I would still expect more correcting later on. So it's just kind of one of those things. So anyways, I'm looking at Theta right now, and I'm like, whoa, where would that come from? Look at that. And the last, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. I mean, we just shot right to the upside. That could be a flat, so be careful. For example, A, B, C, right? In which case, I'm looking for an A, B, C, something like that. Something drawn out a little bit here before going higher. What else could be going on here is this is an A. We're going to come up in a B, and then we get C. And then we go higher. And that's kind of what I'm thinking, is something like that, right? So we're looking for this final correction here before we can start heading higher. So when I zoom out, let's go to the 12-hour. We can see a beautiful inverse head and shoulders, a beautiful base. You can see a cup and handle. I mean, it's got bullishness all over it, right? But the thing is when people get too bullish and you're right at resistance, you know what I mean? It kind of, and I've done it many times where I think like, it's going to break out. I'm not talking about this, but as an example, like, oh, it's going to break out. Right, and we broke out, let's go long, and then we come right back down, right? So it kind of gives you that little pause period here. So if I draw, this is our main range here, or our zone, I should say. Here's our range. Then here's the top of the range, right? And then we can have A, B, C, something like that, right? Something like that. And then continue higher, right? So again, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance, cupping into the resistance. So we could very well come down, make another one of these cups. It might not be that big. It might be very big. We don't know, but we just have to wait and see. Now, is it possible that, this is finished and this is a 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we continue higher? Yes, it is. But if that's the case, then I'm kind of expecting it to flag out either way, but just at the top of this range in here, right? If I had to guess which one, I would say it would be the first one. So, for For example, AVAX kind of looks like a rising wedge. You can kind of see it, right? So maybe we pop the high, but all in all, I'm looking for an ABC. I'm looking for it to come back down. So for example, you see how here's the top or here's the bottom. We're going up, 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 right? So we need a counter trend in order to expand. And a counter trend would look like this, right? So a base needs to fill in that gap down here on this base, right? And that's kind of what I'm looking at. Now with CRV, it kind of gives me that impression that it might be finished, right? So if we go to the 4-hour chart, look at this. This is a very good example here of what I'm talking about. So you see how we had this move to the upside, right? And it looked like it was bullish. It looked like it was going to break out. But what happened? We came all the way back down. So, we had this M. So you need that M shape, right, to then have that Wyckoff look to it. Now, it could have been here. I said back when we were over here, it could be finished and we could go now. But you can see all these rejections here. So that kind of gave me the idea, okay, we're probably heading down back to the lower part of this range before ultimately breaking out and going higher. So I think CRV is in a good spot here. Now, is it possible we could break the low? Obviously, yeah. We could, right? This could be kind of a flag here. We come up, we tag the low, we take some of that liquidity, and then we rush back to the retracement levels. But all in all, I really like this 3-wave move, right? You have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have a massive impulse and a 3-wave pullback, right? So if I take everything off the screen and I overlay like an altcoin, like for example Theta, because it's a good representation of alts, look how massive this impulse was. Like for example, Theta just had a little pump here, right? Like all of the rest of the coins, like Avalanche, so I mean all of them, right? I mean a lot of them. But CRV is one of them that had this huge pump to the upside, right? And then it had this big ABC to the downside. So if we're expecting something like this with alts, right, with kind of the rest of the market, then how does that translate into CRV? Well, maybe we come up into a retracement, then we come back down, but it doesn't break the low, right? So kind of like we break out, we go into a retracement, then we go down into reaccumulation, and then we break out. Whereas the rest of the market looks more like an ABC. So we'll see how it all plays out. But anyways, that'll do it for this video. I just wanted to come in here and explain some of this. There's a couple new coins that I want to show potentially on the next video. IMX, Immutable. I mean, it's got that same shape like Theta. Another one is Bohm. It's a meme coin. It had a pretty big pump, so might want to look out for that one potentially. Now, meme coins are not a hodl coin. It's a momentum play. Remember that. Meme coins are momentum plays. But I like Bohm a little bit because we're kind of doing this channel here. We're correcting to the downside. So if we could break out of here, it could be pretty significant. Another one too is AIOZ Network. I mean, this thing was at a new all-time high. It went into a launch mode. I wasn't comfortable buying it. I'm not sure how much more it has in the tank, but you can see a beautiful flag here. We're sort of cupping in, right? Cup. So maybe we get a ABC here and we can break out and get that 5th wave. You can see like AMP, for example, kind of consolidating, looking for a retracement. Another one is CFX. I think someone asked for that. So to me, you have an impulse. This looks like an A. this looks like a B, and this looks like a C. This is a flat here, right? And now we're building a base. If this is a 1 and this is a 2, we could be getting a monster wave 3 in the not too distant future. So, SUI, right? A lot of people like SUI. I mean, I don't like coins that are at all-time highs. Like, you know what I mean? Most people do. I mean, if you're holding it, then obviously we like it. But what I'm noticing with SUI is we're bottlenecking here to the upside, which means we could obviously do something like that. Maybe break the trend line and then break to the upside. Kind of like a running flat type of situation. You have a 1. This was a beautiful 3-way pullback. If I saw that at that time, I probably would have went long. Very much so. But I didn't get the chance to. So, but, you know, SUI is just one of those first movers, right? And I think a lot of the other coins will as well. Now, if we can come back down in here and get like an ABC like down in here, then I would have no problem buying it. But it just doesn't, I mean, there's so many other options out there that offer more opportunity as far as risk is concerned. But I'm saying if you're already holding this coin, then, you know, might as well. But anyways, everything I say is not financial advice. Remember, I could be totally dead wrong. Always do your own research. Understand what you're doing, right? So anyway, that'll do it for this video. If you can leave a comment, let me know what you guys think. Drop that like. I always appreciate that. And subscribe if you haven't already, because, you know, if you haven't subscribed, I definitely recommend it, because we're going to be turning the tide very shortly here. And as Bitcoin goes into its 5th wave, we're going to need to navigate those waters together, right? And it could be very tricky, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not clear cut and dry like that, right? There's going to be pullbacks. There's going to be wave setups. There's going to be a lot of things. And this is when emotions are at the highest point, right? And then when we start to see altcoins take off, then it gets even more crazy, right? So, you know, subscribing will just it'll allow you to have another outlet, another avenue of opinion. Remember, this is just my opinion. But the more opinions we can gather, the more we can sort of put together our own thesis of what we think. Because, you know, buying the market, that's easy, right? But when you come terms to sell it, and then, like, you know, we pull back, we come back, and we go even higher, people jump back in, and you know, they start losing money, and then, you know what I mean? So understanding the wave structure is going to be very important as we head back to the upside, right? But again, if we have a black swan event, even more so, right? Because if we pop the high, for example, and then we go down into accumulation, right? We're going to need to navigate these waters as well. But if we did something like that and go into reaccumulation, then at that point, there's no doubt in my mind we're going higher, right? So that it really comes down to 2 things: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or rise, crash, retrace, reaccumulation, sideways breakout. It's got to be one of those 2. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, that'll do it for this video. I will catch you guys.